schedule. Actually, the Super 30 office is really far from my house. So it takes almost an hour one side every day. So I'm trying to, I don't know, either find a place here or something else. With that, we will share screen. We will open projects on nextsteps.com. I'm so grateful कि हमने बनाया था because it takes a lot of effort away from, recreating the slides considering we already have them here. So let's go to the Prisma section, guys. I'll send in the chat the slides ka link as well. This specific slide became very popular in the last cohort. Let's see if it happens this time as well because of this woman. I don't know. I've talked about this woman a lot. Like there's this. Oh wait, I haven't stopped chat. My bad. Any word on DynamoDB? It's good. If you don't like, managed databases are decent, man. A lot of companies use them. There's a company that people are getting hired to. Everything is managed. उनको कुछ नहीं करना है. Cloudflare for servers. I think Cloudflare की service या फिर DynamoDB, one of these two they use for databases. They don't want to do anything themselves, which is fine. Scales well. It's a little expensive at scale, but a lot of people use Firebase. It's fine. It doesn't really hit you until you become really big, and then it hits you कि भाई cost is so high. I used a managed service, and then you have to migrate, which is a pain again. But discussion for another day. Let's get back to today's class. Shouldn't be too difficult. अगर यहाँ तक पहुँच गए हो, if you're able to understand SQL, Postgres very well, then ORMs should make your life easy, if anything. तो hopefully ज़्यादा difficult होगा नहीं आज, but we'll see as time goes by. There are 12 slides to go through. Everything including this might be a little hard. Relationships. It's a little weird how they're done in Prisma. Just understanding the difference between what is generating a Prisma client, what is migrating your database. Yeah, everything else is fairly straightforward here, if I'm being honest. Slide number 8 will be a little hard. Slide number 10 will be a little hard. Everything else should be simple. With that, we'll get into it. We'll understand ORMs today. ORMs stand for, oh boy, Object Relational Mapping. I keep saying ORM and ORM. I forgot what the full form was. There are two definitions. The boring old definition that you would get taught in school by a teacher like this, who reminds me of a friend also. The boring old definition says that ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping, a programming technique used in software development to convert data between incompatible type systems in object-oriented programming languages. This technique creates a virtual object database that can be used from within the programming language. समझ आ जाएगा वैसे when we'll create some of these Prisma queries, you'll understand what this means. What is a virtual object database? Even Mongoose that we've been using until now is sort of an ORM. It's more technically called an ODM, Object Document Mapping, because वहाँ पे you're not putting in rows, you're putting in documents. So Mongoose is also sort of an ORM only. तो अगर Mongoose आता है अभी तक, you saw how easy Mongoose was. This will also be very easy. ORMs are used to abstract the complexity of underlying databases into simpler, more easily manageable objects within the code. What this line of code means is that up tak we had to write SQL queries ourselves. We had to make sure SQL injection doesn't happen. We learned specifically what is SQL injection. Another side track here, there's a company that someone got hired to, and they found clear SQL injections in there. They told the CTO was like, nahi hai. They showed the CTO, then the CTO was like, fix karo. Then the guy started to fix and realized that there are 6,000 SQL injections. The guy was like, theek hai, main nahi kar raha fix. So a lot of problems that originate with SQL databases, specifically SQL injection, can be avoided out of the box if you are using an ORM. We'll see how that happens very soon. But an easier to digest definition, simple definition is that ORMs let you interact with your database without worrying too much about the underlying syntax. We had to learn a lot of SQL in the last class. Select, star, from, users, where user ID is equal to 1. A full new language we had to learn, structured query language. ORMs will hide that complexity from us. It will make our life very easy. MongoDB mein we did not have to do this. Mongoose did not have a query language I had to use. What did I do in Mongoose? I simply wrote users.find1, jahan pe user ID is 1. This is what I had to do in MongoDB. What did I have to do in SQL? Select, star, from, users, where user ID equal to 1. So you have to learn this syntax in SQL. But Mongoose mein, MongoDB mein, we did not have to do it. So we are trying to use Prisma now that will convert our SQL queries also into something like this. Prisma.users.find1, where user ID is 1. So our goal is, okay, what will ORMs let us do? They will hide this complexity from us. We will be writing code like this, and this will return us a user's object. Simple as that. That is one of many benefits that an ORM gives you. What are the better benefits? What is its, before we get there, why should you do this? Why ORMs? Why do you want to do this when you can already do this? If we use the PG library like we did last week, we were able to do this. Now I'm telling you, use the Prisma library so that you can do this. So why am I introducing the Prisma library to you guys? Why am I saying कि भाई Prisma use करो? Because the syntax is simpler. ये query हमने last week लिखी थी. Last week we wrote the query like this. This week we will write something as simple as this: user.find, where email is this thing. So the syntax is much easier. As the application developer, you don't have to learn a new query language. You can simply write queries like these. Number two, abstraction that lets you flip between databases you are using. ये बहुत important चीज है कि if you ever want to move from Postgres to MySQL to Prisma, to MongoDB, it's easy to do here. It's still not very easy, like migrating old data that you might have in Postgres. उसको यहाँ migrate करने में हालत खराब हो जाएगी. It's very hard to move a database, but your Node.js application में you will not have to change much. If you ever migrate from MongoDB over to Postgres, so you don't have to change all of these queries now. आपकी query तब भी ऐसी ही दिखेगी. Your Node.js code doesn't need to change too much. Of course, you will have to migrate your old database. If your old data was in Postgres, you will have to copy all of that data over to MongoDB. You will have to see how the schema has changed as you move from here to here. So migration will be hard, but your code will be the same. If you write this code and you are using Postgres, this is the raw query that will eventually reach Postgres. If you are using Prisma and using MongoDB, you still have to write this. The raw query that will reach MongoDB will be this: mongoose.find. So that is why it is preferable to use Prisma or ORMs. Generally though, rarely do you migrate your database. ये बहुत कोई रोज की problem नहीं है. So I would not consider this as a very big reason to use an ORM, but this is another benefit that you get. This one is super important. Type safety. If you remember the queries that we wrote last week, we were writing raw queries यहाँ पे. The way we would send a request to our Postgres table would be client.query, our raw query over here, select star from users, and then the arguments I wanted to send. Select star from users where ID is $1 or email is $1, and then I would pass as the first variable in there. यहाँ पे, if you write this code, we've written this last week, if you write this code and hover over result, तो TypeScript will tell you कि इसका type is any. I don't know इसका type क्या है. इसका type is anything. Because TypeScript can't figure out कि यार you have written select star from users here. It doesn't know what exists in your users table. उसको नहीं पता. तो वो आपको result any देता था. The type over here was any. What that would lead to is कि you can't get autocomplete. अगर आप अपना code लिख रहे हो, तो I can't write result dot and it would automatically, the VS code would show me dot email, dot ID. यहाँ पे वो नहीं होता है. Because we are using the PG library, there are ways to do it here also. You can pass in the type here as a generic, whole different tangent. अभी वहाँ नहीं जा रहे हैं. If you write this raw query and you hover over result will tell you type is any. There's nothing wrong here. But it's not very strict when it comes to type. आपको VS code में autocomplete नहीं मिलेगा. You will not get autocomplete in VS code. But if you're using an ORM like we will today, you will write a query like this कि user db.find जहाँ पे email ये है. And now if you hover over user, you will see कि यार user looks like this. User has an email field, a username field, a password field. VS code will give you, if you write user dot, VS code will give you helpers. कि क्या चाहिए? User dot email, username, password. Something like, I thought there was another screenshot here. But, user के आगे आप dot लिखोगे, VS code आपको extra देने लग जाएगा कि email, username, password. Autocomplete you will get. You don't get that over here. Why? Because you're not specifying the type here. You are just writing a string, select star from users. It can't infer the type from it. But यहाँ पे, this user DB variable is aware of the type. How that awareness comes is a different question. But userdb.find my userdb knows schema is this. If you hover over user, you see this. ये तीनों simple points थे. This one is a little hard. Migrations क्या होते हैं? We need to understand that first. We need to understand what are migrations. Then we'll understand how Prisma makes your life a little bit easy if you are using migrations. So, what is the benefit of using Prisma? It gives you automatic migrations. Harkirat, what are migrations? In case of a simple Postgres application, like we did last week, it's very hard to keep track of all the commands that ran and led to the current schemas of the table. Very long statement. But basically what this means is, okay, if you are using a simple Postgres table, if you remember from last week, वहाँ पे we would first write a command like this, create table users, ID, auto increment, primary key, email, varchar 2030, unique, password, varchar 30, ऐसा कुछ. We would write these create table scripts, or at least we had to run this once on our database so that our database is aware कि यहाँ पे एक users table exist करता है. Now let's say after 30 days of launching your application, you have to add another field here. You have to add another field called age, which is a number. So how will you add that? You can't run the create table query again. फिर से थोड़ी बताओगे कि यार create table again with age. You have to run an alter query. Alter table users, add column age integer. After 30 days, you had to run this script. Then after 30 more days, you had to add something else. You ran another script. These are called migrations. You are migrating your database. Your database is getting new tables in there, the tables are getting altered. This is very hard to keep track of. अब आपने अपने database पे तो कर लिया. If you have, I am currently a developer. I started a new project. I started my database. I migrated my database. I ran these 3 commands here. But when another developer wants to test it on their machine, I have to send them these migrations, right? मुझे उनको ये migrations भेजनी है कि यार these are the commands that you have to run one after the other. तभी जाके your users table will be created. So these migrations are actually part of your code base. We did not do this last week. I did not create a folder where I was putting these. We ran them raw in our database. That was wrong. You should have a folder in your code base that says migrations. Whatever database migrations you are running, you should store them over there. This is one of the reasons. Okay, if you go to the end of the file, you will see all the migrations of CMS. What is CMS? It is the code base of app.100x.com. इसका जो code base है, उसमें there is a folder called migrations. And it has all of these commands. The first one being create table users, create table course, create table user purchase. And then the second one being alter table course, add another column called description. Because after 3 days, we realized that every course needs to have a description also. So we added this. So database will change very quickly. And all of these migrations should be in a single place. You should not have them in your own machine and running them raw on your database. Other developer को पता ही नहीं है कि database का schema कैसा दिख रहा है. This schema needs to be shared with the world. And you will have to do it yourself. If you are using PG like last week, it will happen automatically if you are using Prisma. So this folder that you see, so many folders are here. So many migrations we have done. All of these migrations were automatically generated. Generate हो गए code base में चली गई. I did not have to write them again. This is one of other benefits of ORMs. Okay, whenever we are changing any column, any row, adding a column, deleting an old column, that full audit log is over here. So whoever wants, they can come, run all of these one by one, and their database will look exactly the same as my database. So if you ever want to run CMS locally, you have to run all of these queries in your Postgres database. How do you run them is a different question. In a single command, you can run all of these. बट आपको ये रन करनी पड़ेंगी. यू विल हैव टू मॉडिफाई योर टेबल्स स्लोली एंड स्टेडीली, जितने भी टेबल्स एग्जिस्ट इन CMS, so that your database schema looks the same as other developers. Prisma gives you that out of the box. It gives you automatic migrations. You just change one thing and it automatically generates कि यार ये create table query है, please run it in your database. It automatically comes over here. In fact, if you look at it, it's time stamped 2023 November 25th को at this specific Unix timestamp I added something. 2024 January 11th or 14th को I added something. So all of these are automatically generated migrations. Prisma gives you that out of the box. That is another benefit of Prisma. These are the 4 benefits. To recap, benefit number 1, syntax is much simpler. Life will be much easier as a developer. Number 2, not an important one, but you can easily flip between databases if you ever have to. Rarely does that happen कि you're moving from Postgres to MongoDB. Number 3, super important, type safety. It makes your code type safe. It gives you types like these on your variables, so you can get autocomplete. TypeScript will begin to complain if I start to access user.email1. If I have a typo in my code base, मैंने user.email1 को access करने की कोशिश करी, TypeScript will complain. TypeScript will say कि user only has an email field. Why are you trying to access email1 field? So that is another benefit of ORMs. Last one is automatic migrations. नहीं समझ आया कोई बात नहीं, we are writing the code very soon. When we write the code, you will see these migrations come up, slowly and steadily. Cool है. Benefits of Prisma are done. We understand what are ORMs. We understand why should you use ORMs. ऊपर से थोड़ा समझ आ गया. बाकी as we write code, we'll understand these. We'll see these benefits in actuality. Now comes the question: is Prisma the only ORM? The answer is no. Prisma is thoda overly used, but Drizzle is another one that we'll be learning through the cohort. That is again gives you similar things: automatic migrations, type safety, so on and so forth. But Prisma kya hai? Today we are learning Prisma. Let's read through what it says. Prisma is the next generation Node.js and TypeScript ORM. Very faddy statement. Prisma unlocks a new level of developer experience when working with databases thanks to its intuitive data model, automatic migrations, type safety, and auto completion. So 4 big benefits they have given. Let's see what these benefits are. First thing they said is data model. In a single file, you can define your schema, what it looks like, what tables you have, what fields each table has, how are the rows related to each other. Ye sara kuch you can write in a single file. Let me show you that file for CMS. If you go to cms/prisma/schema.prisma, this is that single file we are talking about. What did it say? In a single file, define your schema. That is what we have done over here. Here, there is a courses table that will look like this. Now, this is not SQL. I'm not writing create table course. I am writing a very generic thing. This is Prisma syntax. कि model है एक course करके. It has an ID field which is an integer. Apex course ID which is a string. Description which is a string. Image URL which is a string. There is a user purchases table. There is a content table. Every video is a content. There is a course content table, certificate table, so on and so forth. बहुत सारे tables हैं. But I have not written any SQL. I have written them in Prisma का जो syntax है. And Prisma automatically generates these migrations for me. Prisma, मेरे को सिर्फ इतना code लिखना है. This code I have to write, yes. But all the other code, everything you see in this folder is auto-generated. If today I go to prisma/schema.prisma and add a new field here, I add, in the users table, let's say users table, here are users table. I add another field here called age. I just have to add it here. I have to run a command after that. And automatically there will be another migration that gets added. जहां पे लिखा होगा alter table users, add field age. So all of these are automatically generated. You just have to worry about a single file. That single file isn't SQL because Prisma doesn't work just with SQL. Prisma can work with no SQL databases also. Prisma can work directly with MongoDB. So you don't have to give it SQL syntax. Give it some standard syntax. SQL syntax will automatically be generated. Automatic migrations, Already learned this a few times. Prisma generates and runs the database migrations based on the changes to the Prisma schema. As I change this Prisma schema, I add another field over here. It automatically generates the migrations and also migrates my database. मेरा database में खुद वो field भी add कर देता है. How we will see very soon. But it takes care of all of this. Type safety, we already saw it. Okay, if we are using Prisma in our code base, we will get a user variable over here. Whenever I hit the database, this is slightly wrong. I have to await over here. But if I do await userdb.find, it will return me an object जिस पे type is very well specified. I can simply access user.email, user.password. And lastly, autocomplete. If I write user.f, तो find खुद ही बताएगा कि what do you want to do? User.find, user.update, so on and so forth. ठीक है? That is what Prisma provides. Pretty much the same benefits as an ORM. Slide 2 and slide 3 are very similar. Here we understood why ORMs. Here we saw Prisma provides you the same things that we said कि हाँ ORMs आपको देते हैं. So that is why you should Prisma. अब एक पोल कर लेते हैं. Do we understand high level things? Can we start to code? Let's do a poll. Let me launch it. Do we understand everything? %91% is decent. I'll answer doubts at the end. But I think we can proceed if it's 91%. बाकी लोग start to write a little bit of code. समझ आ जाएगा. ठीक है. Let's initialize an empty TypeScript project, guys. We have done this many times now. Let me see through this. And defining your schema, generating migrations. All right. Yeah, this is simple enough. Don't even worry about it. बहुत simple चीजें. ठीक है. Let's initialize an empty TypeScript project. Let me create a new folder called projects/cohort3. I'm going to call it, what week are we at? I think we're at week 18. So week 18 Prisma. And npm init-y to initialize an empty package.json. Let me open this in Visual Studio Code. I have an empty project. That empty project has a package.json file. And now I want to, step 1 क्या था? Initialize TypeScript in here. How can you do that? npm install TypeScript. वैसे तो slides have all the dependencies. You can go to the slides and install all of them together. I am going slowly. I am just installing TypeScript for now. बाकी की dependencies we will add as need be. ठीक है? So I'm just running npm install TypeScript. Followed by, do you know the next command? npx tsc-init. ये आता है सबको. We know this. Hopefully we have done this many times. This is how you initialize an empty TypeScript project. JavaScript project नहीं बनाना है. TypeScript project बनाना है. To initialize a TypeScript project, you first create package.json. How did I create package.json? npm init-y. Then install TypeScript as a dependency. How did I do that? npm install TypeScript. Then you generate an empty tsconfig.json, npx tsc-init. These are the 3 commands that you run. After these 3 commands are run, your tsconfig.json file is here. What is the next step? You change root dir over here. What did I do? I generated tsconfig.json by running this command. It has a bunch of defaults for my TypeScript code. And I'm changing the root directory to be ./source and the out directory to be ./dist. Same things we have done many times until now. Same thing is present in the slides also. Initialize TypeScript, tsconfig.json, change the root dir to source, change the out dir to dist. इतना हमने अभी तक किया है, पहले भी nothing new. Then we would create an empty src folder, and add an index.ts file inside. Empty source folder, add index.ts inside. And let me just do console.log hi. Just initializing an empty TypeScript project, nothing too complicated until now. एक last चीज we have to do to compile and run this project. Go to package.json and add a dev script. There is already a test script that does nothing right now. इसको delete करो. Add a dev script that first builds your TypeScript file into JavaScript. tsc-b क्या करता है? TypeScript compiler TSC converts your index.ts file into an index.js file. That is what tsc-b does. And node dist/index.js. This file command will, let me run this command over here. What does it do? npx tsc-b creates a dist/index.js file and node./dist/index.js runs that JavaScript file. So now any type I run npm run dev, anytime I run npm run dev, these two commands would run. First one would compile my code. Second one would run my JavaScript file. Let me run it. And I see hi there over here. Take 20 seconds. Try to catch up until this point. I will recap all the steps. npm init-y followed by npx tsc-init. npm install TypeScript. npx tsc-init. Change rootdir, outdir. Add source/index.ts. Put a simple console.log there. Add the dev script. Dev should be tsc-b and node dist/index.js. And then run npm run dev. These are the steps that I have followed. Take 20 seconds. Try to run them on your side. बहुत difficult है. Directly go to Replit. Create a new TypeScript REPL. Good to go. You don't have to do it locally if you've not been able to catch up in the next 20 seconds. All right. That's how you create a TypeScript project, which has no Prisma inside it. Next up, we will add Prisma as a dependency. If we had to use MongoDB, what dependency did we add? npm install mongoose. If we had to use Postgres, what dependency did we add? npm install pg. What are we using today? We are using Prisma. So what will we add? npm install Prisma. The same steps are present in the slides as well. npm install Prisma was there. I just did it later. This had a bunch of extra things also, specifically ts node and at type/node. Ignore it for now. It's fine. What we're doing is also fine. You don't have to add these two as a dependency just yet. Cool. The last thing is, after you have installed Prisma, you need a few files here. If you remember the CMS code base, there was a full folder called Prisma. यहाँ पे पूरा folder था Prisma के नाम से. This Prisma folder had a schema.prisma file, जहाँ पे we were putting all of our database schema. We want these files in our code base also. We are also creating a full stack application. CMS is also a full stack application. They have a Prisma/schema.prisma folder. We will need the same. So what do I have to do here? npx Prisma init. This command, if you read through it, क्या कहती है ये? Your Prisma schema was created at Prisma/schema.prisma. It generated this folder for me and added an empty schema.prisma in here. I can also write it myself. Like I can create the Prisma folder myself, put schema.prisma inside myself. I don't have to run this command. Just a commonly used command कि मतलब npx Prisma init use कर लो. It automatically generates your files. This is your Prisma file. Read about it over here. Looking for a way to speed up queries? Use Prisma Accelerate. This is how they make money. So they want you to, that's why they've put this pitch in the comments. But we will get rid of all the comments for now and see two sections जो यहाँ पे हैं. Generator, client, provider equal to Prisma client JS. What is this? We'll come to very soon. Data source, DB, provider equal to PostgreSQL, URL equal to environment variable से pick up database underscore URL. कुछ तो code it gave me. Until now, we thought के schema.prisma में तो बस models होते हैं. What database looks like, what tables do I have? But it has two extra things over here. Data source hopefully is straightforward. Okay, what is your data source? Prisma can be used with MongoDB also. It can be used with Postgres also. It can be used with MySQL also. So you have to tell it कि अभी किसके साथ use कर रहे हो. What are we using it with? PostgreSQL. Default value यही आती है. And URL. Where is my Postgres URL? Where is my Postgres database? उसके credentials क्या हैं? That I need to put over here. So I can either put it directly over here, or generally all your sensitive things should be in a top level .env file. So when I ran npx prisma init, it generated this top level .env for me. I can go over here, has a bunch of comments. Let me get rid of them. And it has a database URL, which I need to replace with my database. What is my database? I don't have one right now. So what is the next step? It's to get yourself a Postgres database. Now I am using neon.tech because it's just, you can get one here for free. But you can run it locally. You can get it from a different service. You can have a paid one. Doesn't matter. Depends on you. I am using neon.tech to create my database. Why is this so slow? Hopefully the video isn't slow. Neon.tech is a little slow. To recap, since I am using Prisma with Postgres, I need to get myself a Postgres database. That is what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to rent a new free Postgres database because neon.tech gives you 10 free databases or one free database, something like that. It is not running for me right now. I don't know why that is. I'll try for another 30 seconds. If it doesn't happen, I'll run it locally. Oh, there you go. Sort of started for me. I can click on new project and create a fresh project. I'm going to call it Prisma test class. This will generate a new database for me. If you do the same, you'll get one for free. And you can, of course, as your scale increases, you have to pay them. But initially it's for free, so that's fine. This is my database URL. This is how I connect to my database. We have done this last week. We have done SQL last week. We have done Postgres last week. This is my Postgres URL. If you notice, it tells you कैसे use करना है. Do you want to use it with a Neon driver? Do you want to use it with Next.js? Do you want to use it with Prisma? We want to use it with Prisma. So it is telling you कि यार आपके यहाँ पे ऐसा कुछ होगा. Data source DB, provider Postgres SQL, URL this. So that is what we want to do. We have data source DB, provider Postgres, URL equal to this. We just need to copy this Postgres string and use it or paste it over here. यार ये है मेरा database URL. My database URL isn't this random thing that Prisma put here. It is this. This is my Postgres database credentials. I have put it where? In my top level .env file. Why? Because schema.prisma में it is written, pick it from the env file. There will be a database URL in the .env file. यहाँ से उठाओ उसे and put it over here. I can paste it directly over here. This also works. But the problem here is I will commit this to GitHub and then everyone will be able to see my database. So that is why you should not commit this to GitHub. Put it in an environment variable. Same thing we have done over here. In CMS, data source DB, provider is this, URL is database URL. I have not committed my .env. मेरी जो .env है जहां पे आई हैव माय डेटाबेस क्रेडेंशियल्स, you don't commit this to GitHub. If you see in the root folder, there is no .env here. There is .env.example. Okay, env ऐसी दिखनी चाहिए. But the core .env is not here. The core .env is in the .gitignore file. .ignore file में सबसे ऊपर है भाई .env. इसको ignore कर दो git. Git should ignore this file because this file has my credentials. Git should not commit this to GitHub. It should stay locally on my machine. And that is exactly what happened. So what did I do? Generated the file. Went to Neon console, got myself a new database. Went to .env file, pasted this. Now comes this was all bootstrapping the project. Now we can actually start to create our tables, put data in our tables, so on and so forth. But yahan tak samajh aaya? Do we understand how to bootstrap a new, fresh, empty, this thing? Oh, I haven't made Akash, Aryan co-host. That's why I have to do the polls myself. Simple enough, ठीक है. 95% is beautiful. So what are we supposed to do next? आप लिखो अपना स्कीमा. What application are you creating? क्या बनाना है? To do application बनानी है, course selling application बनानी है, second brain application बनानी है. Let's say I want to create a to do application or any application. Users table तो हर जगह होगा. You will always need a model called users or a table called users. जहाँ पे what will you have? An ID field. Let's say it's an integer. Let's say it's auto increment. And it's our primary key at ID, I think. At ID means it's my primary key. At auto, I think we can add auto increment here, but we'll see. Auto increment का मतलब समझ आ रहा है कि it should start with 1. First user's ID should be 1, then 2, then 3, so on and so forth. Every user should have a username, which should be a string, which should be unique. Password, which should be a string, which doesn't have to be unique. What else? Age, which should be an integer. This much schema looks decent enough. Okay, ठीक है. For now, our users table looks like this. It might change in the future, but abhi ke liye it looks like this. Only red squiggly is here. Unknown field auto increment. तो क्या होती है? Let's see. Oh, at default auto increment. My bad. Okay, by default, it should auto increment 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. I have written my schema in the schema.prisma file. I have not yet generated SQL from it. I have not yet run my SQL in my database. अभी मैंने कुछ नहीं किया है. Define किया. It's like writing a doc. It's like I've written a doc जहाँ पे I've defined my schema needs to look like this. Now comes the first important step of Prisma. Okay, after you have written this, migrate your database. What does migration mean? Generate the SQL. Run the SQL on your database. So what do I have to do next? I have to run this new command that you need to learn now. npx prisma migrate dev या फिर यहाँ पे prod भी मतलब होता है. But let's run dev. I don't know if it's prod or something else. But let's run npx prisma migrate dev. What is it saying? Environment variable loaded from .env. Schema loaded from schema.prisma यहाँ से. Data source is db postgres. Database neondb. Schema public at this endpoint. मैं इस database को migrate कर रहा हूँ. I am migrating this database. What does migrating a database mean? Adding the users table there. Running the SQL command over there. Let's see if it happens or not. We'll wait for some time. It says, give a name of this specific migration. This is important because if you look at our migrations in CMS, all of them tell what is happening. I initialized the table over here. I updated the course over here, added the content field over here, so on and so forth. So, ये जो name आप यहाँ देते हो, let's say initialize, This name becomes handy in your migrations. इनके नाम में लिखा होता है कि this was at this time, this migration was done. So it's just easy for me to see here, where did I add that migration of Discord? Where did I add the migration where slides were added? So that's why this name is, should be descriptive of what is happening. In my case, I'm initializing it. So I gave it the name of initialize. What does it say? The following migrations have been created and applied from the new schema. The following migrations have been created. Migrations में एक नया फोल्डर बन गया जिसमें migration.sql बन गई. Automatic migrations. I wrote this automatically. Migrations folder में a new folder was generated which has migration.sql, which has the raw database queries. Create table user, ID serial not null, username, password, age. Username is the primary key. ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो, ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो. Either is fine. In their case, they have written it this way. Create unique index username key on user username. Create unique index username. Why did it create an index? Oh, uniqueness constraint यहाँ डाला है. Create unique index on user username. It could also have done this. Unique. Both of them would have done the same thing. यहाँ पे it has added the uniqueness constraint अलग से. यहाँ पे I could have added it like this. So it's just about how Prisma automatically generates it. It can generate it like this. Unique यहाँ लिख दिया. It can अलग से say के username is unique. ठीक है. What did it say? The following migrations have been created and applied for the new schema changes. Apply भी हो गई हैं. What does that mean? कि जो users table था, sorry, the database that I had over here, if I open that database and go to tables, and wait for it to open. Let me refresh. काफी slow है. Can you see a new table here created for users? क्या मुझे create table query खुद से लिखनी पड़ी? Did I have to write the create table query myself? No. Automatically it got created. Automatically it got applied. यहाँ पे now I see ID, username, password, age. There is a new folder that got generated. _prisma_migrations. इसमें भी कुछ कुछ स्टोर होता है. You can probably guess इसमें क्या स्टोर होता है. This is storing कि this is the first migration that had happened. This is the name of the first migration. तो इससे Prisma figures out कि कितना migration हो गया, कितना बचा है. If in the future I add another change here, again, you only add changes here. You don't have to change this SQL. Don't touch this SQL. This is auto-generated. You add changes here. कि यार, I want to add another field called city, which is a string. Then I just have to do this. And then I will re-migrate my database. We will wait because it's a little slow. Meanwhile, let me look at Q&A really quickly. Oh, at default auto increment. That might be what you're seeing here. Foundry when? Monday by Max. Can we do a dry run before generating? Yes. I think you run npx prisma migrate dev -- dry run. So it shows you the diff before actually migrating it. At ID means, it means this is the primary key. When I added at ID over here, if I go to the final migration, you will see constraint user primary key is the primary key of this database. So at ID means कि ये इसको uniquely identify करेगा. How to join in Prisma? Join in Prisma is tricky. I think पहले तो they did not even allow joins. They only did what do you call it? Subqueries, or would do multiple queries. And now I think there's some controversy, some blog post. And then I think now there's a way to do it in Prisma. We'll explore it. Add a new name for the migration. Added city. And this will do the same thing. You can guess what it will do. It will create a new folder add the migration over there. देखो बन गया. And what did it do? Alter table user, add column city, text not null. Add a new column called city. It should be text. It should be not null. If I add a question mark over here, it means it can be null also. Question mark means optional. So if I don't want it to be null, तो मैं string लिखूंगा. If I want it can be null, तो I can add a question mark over here. And that's the second migration that is done. Applied also. Someone was asking for dry run. I think it is this, but I've done it before, so I know there's a way to do it. Dash dash. It is not this, but there is a way to dry run a migration. We can Google it, figure it out. Refresh. How to dry run a migration in Prisma. Let me spend like 30 seconds here. There is an answer. Looks like I figured it out, but I'll share my perspective. Technically, running development, test the migration first by running as a few shadow databases to make sure they are valid. However, it won't necessarily help with data migrations. My suggestion would be, ये तो कुछ और ही है. They are doing something else only. They are suggesting that you should create a new database. They have a concept of shadow databases, by the way. You can update, you can give it a different shadow database, which as the name suggests, different database that you migrate to. I think it's another argument over here, shadow database or shadow database URL. But let's not go there. What they have suggested is to create a new database and do dry running over there, but which is not great. So we'll see if there's a better way to do it. Let me refresh. Remind me at the end of the class. We can brainstorm on this. Let me just finish this by 9:30 at max. Then we'll discuss. It's taking a long time, but long story short, वहाँ पे अब एक city field भी आ गई होगी. There is a city field in my users table. This part simple. Migrating the database schema is simple. Let's go back to the slides. What did we say? Create npx prisma init created the empty schema.prisma file. Selecting your database, we selected Postgres SQL. It is a good idea for you to add a Prisma extension. I already have it. This is why I see all of these colors over here. You can also add it in Visual Studio Code. Then we started to define our data model. Something similar we wrote. Model users, ID, username, email, password. Assignment. Add a users and a to-do table in your application. Don't worry about foreign keys. ठीक है. तो assignment भी कर लो यार एक बार. Can you add a to-dos table? Given we already know how to add a users table, what do you think the model for a to-do table should look like? Model to-do. It will have an ID. Let's keep it an integer. At default auto increment. And this will be the ID of this table. और क्या होता है in a to-do? You store the title. You store the description. And you store whether or not this to-do has been completed. That looks decent. कुछ बचा है इसमें? User ID. कौन से यूजर की to-do है? User ID. User ID क्या है यहाँ पे? हमारे users की ID क्या है? It is an integer. So, int. That's all you need. I have the schema for a to-do application. Same we did in Mongoose, if you remember. We had a user schema we defined. We had a to-do schema we defined. Same thing we have done over here. Users and to-dos. We haven't had foreign keys yet. We haven't added relationships. That's a discussion for later. But for now, users table, to-dos table, decided, created. Next step is migrating database. Again, every time you are touching schema.prisma, anytime you're changing something here, you need to remigrate the database. npx prisma migrate dev. We'll wait for it. Taking a long time. Look at Q&A until then. How do you migrate the DB when there's already some data present in it? Oh, great question. We'll see very soon. update underscore to do. Great question someone asked. If there is already some data in there, then how will you migrate the database? So there are a lot of things. Agar you are deleting something, so that is fine. If there is a database that has some data, we have removed the user ID field from here. It will completely get removed from all the entries that were there. It gets tricky when you add something. If there are 10 rows that already exist, and then you add something new here, I don't know, title, description, time, date time. If I add a new field here, this is a problem because there are 10 entries already in there. Unme to there is no time field. So how can you add a new field over here? So Prisma will complain. So you can either make this optional, कि यार जो पहले की थी उनको ignore करो. They don't need any date time. The new ones need a date time. पुराने वाले में खाली भी हो सकती है. So you can either make it optional or you can give it a default value. So they will all get the default value. Either is fine. या तो make it optional. So the database will complain. It will be like, ठीक है, some data is there. This new column will be null everywhere. Second one is add default now, which means अभी का जो time है वो default value वहां चली जाएगी. Cool. Database has been migrated. अब next step क्या है? Let's check the database. क्या to do table आ गया यहाँ? Let's see. Refresh. There are 3 migrations that have been applied. To do table will be here when the refresh happens. Now comes the part of how do you integrate it with your backend. Exploring the database, एक और चीज है कि जाके डेटा को देख लो. We saw the database. We have seen it is migrated. It has a users table. It has a to-dos table. The next step is generating the Prisma client. This one is important. ये थोड़ा confusing होता है कभी-कभी. This also leads to a bunch of errors in prod. So this is cohort 2 syllabus, and वहाँ पे there was this slide called auto-generated clients. So this is something you should get comfortable with. This term comes a lot. Even when you ever use the OpenAPI spec, whatever that is, you auto-generate clients. Same thing we have to do today. Auto-generating clients. What is a client? If this is the database, and this is my Node.js application, a client lets you connect to the database, update the database. So what is a client? Something that will give you something like client.user.update, client.user.insert, client.user.get. So all of these commands you will get on the client. What is the client? A file, a class, something जिसके अंदर there is logic to convert it, write the raw SQL queries. In our Node.js application, we will not be writing any more, select star from users. ये हम नहीं लिखेंगे. We will be writing this client.user.get. So for this, we need this client. ये कहाँ से आएगा? This is something you have to generate. If you look at the schema.prisma, you will see we have added a generator over here. Okay, I want to generate a Prisma client. मेरे को एक client चाहिए that will connect to the database. So for that, and you can have various type of generators. By the way, you can generate multiple things. You can generate Zod schemas. You can generate. अभी हम कुछ दिन पहले discuss कर रहे थे. I forgot. But this is just one of many generators that exist. कि given this schema, generate something from it. इससे कुछ बना दो. Now what we are generating is a simple Prisma client, but you can generate a bunch of things from this. To generate the client, you have to run the command npx prisma generate. What is the second command you need to get very comfortable with? npx prisma generate. दो command है, बार बार run होती है, very popularly, you will use in projects. npx prisma migrate, npx prisma generate. So get comfortable with these two commands. npx prisma generate will generated a Prisma client to ./node modules / @prisma / client. Now, one new thing to know is कि node modules जो है, you can bring folders here from npm, which we do. We bring Express over here. We brought TypeScript over here. We brought Prisma over here. But some things you can generate and put also here. You can create files inside node modules. And that is what this guy did. It generated a Prisma client to node modules slash at prisma slash client, node modules slash at prisma slash client. ये जो फोल्डर है ये अभी अभी जनरेट हुआ है. If I delete this and rerun the command, what did I do? Why did I delete the whole thing? My bad. Oopsie daisy. npm install prisma. अभी अगर मैं add prisma folder देखूं इसमें client है. Let me delete the client and let me run npm prisma generate or npx prisma generate. The client folder I would have hoped would have gotten regenerated, but नहीं बना. Generated prisma client to /node module /add prisma /client /node modules /add prisma /client तो दिख नहीं रहा भाई. npm install prisma client फिर नहीं दिख रहा. या तो VS Code is not showing me client, cd node modules /add prisma /client. हाँ, so it's just VS Code that is not showing it to me. Let me show you one more time. Let me do node modules add prisma. Let me delete client. Let me go back. अब client folder यहाँ exist नहीं करता. If I try to do ls of node modules add prisma /client तो कह रहा है ये folder exist नहीं करता. But if I run npx prisma generate and then try to do the same thing, so it is showing me कि ये सारी files got generated. How did they get generated? Because I wrote a generator over here. कि यार given this schema ये तो generate करना ही है. I can add more generators, but we just have one generator for now. What have I automatically generated? A client. What are we learning? Automatically generated clients, generating the Prisma client. Client represents all the functions that convert this into this. We as the application developer want our lives to be easy. So we will just write this code. Under the hood, this gets converted to an SQL query and that is fine. So for that you have to run npx prisma generate. ये हमने कर लिया. अब देखते हैं Node.js एप्लीकेशन में यूज कैसे होगा. दिस इज जस्ट एन इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेप. द थिंग टू लर्न इज कि देयर आर टू कमांड्स दैट यू रन. npx prisma migrate dev to migrate your database. Whenever you change this, you will run this. And the other one you will run is npx prisma generate to generate a new Prisma client. What is a Prisma client? A bunch of files in at prisma /client. All of these files. What these files do is a different question, but you have to generate them once. We have done that. अब देखते हैं कि Node.js application में बनेगा कैसे. How do you create the Node.js application? Creating your first application. Pretty simple. Just like we did import mongoose from mongoose, we have to do import Prisma client from at prisma /client. यही तो folder बना था अभी. What was the automatically folded created generator? At prisma /client. इसी में तो कुछ code है that converts my queries into raw SQL queries. तो in my index.ts जहां पे I have just done console.log hi there, I can do import Prisma client from at prisma /client. It is similar to me doing import mongoose from mongoose. Same thing. Mongoose lets me connect to my MongoDB database. Prisma client will let me connect to my Postgres database. Const client equal to new Prisma client. This will generate a new or whatever, an instance of the Prisma client class. This is a class. This is an instance of that class. And now, अब देखो autocomplete की power. Client dot user is coming as an autocomplete. Client dot to do is coming as an autocomplete. This is the benefit of using Prisma. कि you don't have to figure out कि क्या लिखना होगा. You don't have to do client dot query select star from users. You can do that also, by the way. Client dot raw query लिखोगे. It means you can write a raw SQL query, but we don't want that. We have an ORM. We will simply do client dot user dot again autocomplete. Create many and return. We just want to create data. You लिखा username. Automatically सब आ रहा है आपके लिए. हरकीरत. जाना है यहाँ पे जाके देख भी सकते हो कि व्हाट आर द टाइप्स. अच्छा, यूजर नेम आई हैव टू गिव, पासवर्ड आई हैव टू गिव, सिटी, एज. वेयर डज दिस फोल्डर एग्जिस्ट? ये सारी टाइप कहाँ पे आई है? ये तो डॉट प्रिज्मा स्लैश क्लाइंट में है. आई वुड हैव अज्यूम्ड इट विल बी ऐड प्रिज्मा स्लैश क्लाइंट, बट ठीक है, दिस टाइप केम इन डॉट प्रिज्मा डॉट क्लाइंट स्लैश क्लाइंट. सॉरी, यूजर नेम और क्या थी टाइप्स, फिर भूल गया मैं. पासवर्ड, एज, सिटी. पासवर्ड, एज, सिटी. That is all you have to do. This is so much easier than doing this. Client.query, insert into users, username, password, email, age, values. harkirat@gmail.com, 123 21 Delhi. ये भी कर सकते हो. This is how we've been doing it until now. But isn't this much easier? Yes, Harkirat, it is. So that is what an ORM is. Khatam kahani. Let me put this inside a async function called main, or maybe create user. And let me call create user over here. There you go. As simple as that. इसको await कर लेते हैं. खत्म. This will insert an entry into my database. Let's try it out. How do I run this TypeScript file of mine? How can I run the TypeScript file that calls client.user.create by running npm run dev? Compile the code, run the code. Exit. Hopefully it did what it was supposed to do. Let's see. Let's go to the database. Slow बहुत है ये बस. Yeah, that's really, oh, there you go. Tables. We'll wait for it. एक बार देख लेते हैं ये. There we go. Users table में entry हो गई. User name Hazkiyat, password 123 age 21, ID 1. That's it. How do you delete a user? Delete. Where ID is 1. That's how you delete a user. How do you update a user? Update. Where ID is 1, set the data to be username Harkirat2. That's how you update a user. How do you read a user? Find first अगर एक ही एंट्री चाहिए, find अगर बहुत सारी एंट्रीज चाहिए. Where ID is 1, find first or find many. Find first कर लेते हैं. This will return you that user. Let's see if it does. Const user equal to this, and notice console.log user dot age, city, ID, password सब आ गया automatically. Question mark dot आया because user can be null or can be this thing. User null भी तो हो सकता है. This ID might not exist in the database. So types are so good कि it is telling you automatically कि भाई user जो होगा either it will have this or it will have null. If I just want the username, I don't want the password, I can say select username true. कि बस username देना भाई, और कुछ नहीं चाहिए मुझे, ID नहीं चाहिए. Then if I hover over this, it says क्या जो entry आएगी या तो वो null होगी or it will have a username. This is the benefit of Prisma. It has automatic type generation. आपको TypeScript को बताना नहीं पड़ा. This is not any. It automatically knows कि अच्छा you only want to get username. तो of course user will only have a username field. If I remove the select, then it knows अच्छा आपको सब कुछ ही चाहिए होगा फिर. It gives you everything over here. Let's log user पूरा का पूरा. What do you think will get logged? Is there a user with ID 100? There isn't. So if I run this, what will get logged? Null gets logged. But is there a user with ID 1? Yes, there is. So if I run this now, I get the user. Khatam. Rather than doing mongoose.find1, we're doing client.find1. Only thing is client आया कहाँ से? Client is generated. Client को इतना पता है कि user is a thing. तो client will have to be generated from this schema. Schema में हमने बताया कि user is a thing. Schema बन गया. देन यू जनरेट द क्लाइंट कि यार ये स्कीमा के बेसिस पे क्लाइंट बना. तो दैट क्रिएटेड वट एवर दैट क्रिएटेड, उसने ये क्रिएट किया प्रिज्मा क्लाइंट. इसको पता है कि क्लाइंट डॉट यूजर इज अ थिंग, क्लाइंट डॉट वट एवर द अदर थिंग वॉज, टू डू इज अ थिंग, सो ऑन एंड सो. तो ये है भाई, कूल है. लेट्स डू अ पोल. डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड प्रिज्मा? सिंपल थिंग्स. इसके बाद रिलेशनशिप है, माइल्डली हार्ड. दिस इज द सिंपल बिट. लेट्स डू अ पोल. आई हैव टू डू इट माई सेल्फ. सिंपल इनफ. 91% इज ब्यूटिफुल, 92% इवन. ठीक है. तो अब एक चीज बची है लास्ट, and this was faster than I hoped for. Very nice. The last thing that is left is here. That's good. Relationships. ये थोड़ा हार्ड होगा. Bear with me for 10 minutes. 10 minutes में खत्म है. Prisma lets you define relationships to relate tables with each other. Do we remember foreign keys from last week? Last week, what did we learn? कि यार, you should not shove everything in the same database. If you are using SQL, normalize database. Break it down into various small databases. For example, a to-do database में there will be a users table, there will be a to-dos table, but they will be related to each other. यहाँ पे जो user ID field है, that represents कि this to-do is for this user. This to-do is for user ID 1. So you should specify these relationships upfront. Foreign keys बतानी चाहिए. Why? Because if you specify these upfront, then your database becomes very strict. इसमें कोई entry नहीं आ सकती with ID 3. There is no user ID with ID 3. You can't add a row over here with ID 3. So you should define these foreign keys very well. You should define these relationships. कि this represents this, this represents this. User ID over here is a foreign key to the ID thing over here. ये जो ID है, this is a foreign key to that. ये user ID का कुछ वजूद है एक दूसरे टेबल में. This exists in a different table. Why is that helpful? That is helpful because then in the future, if you ever try to by mistake put an entry over here with user ID 5 and user ID 5 तो यहाँ है नहीं, it will throw an error. That is why this is beneficial. So schema remains the same. You just have to define the relationships. Schema Prisma में it's a little weird. You have to do it two places. आपको यहाँ पे भी बताना पड़ेगा कि यार एक यूजर कैन हैव मल्टीपल टू डूज. आपको यहाँ पे भी बताना पड़ेगा कि यूजर आईडी जो है ना, इट रिप्रेजेंट्स अ फॉरेन की ओवर हियर. वी आर सेइंग कि यूजर कैन हैव मल्टीपल टू डूज. यूजर में एक टू डूज फील्ड भी होगी विच विल बी एन एरे ऑफ टू डूज. अब ये एसक्यूएल में नहीं जाएगा. दिस विल नॉट रीच द एसक्यूएल टेबल. यहाँ पे एक न्यू टू डूज एंट्री विल नॉट कम. वी आर जस्ट सेइंग कि देयर इज अ वन टू मेनी रिलेशनशिप. To do's, every user will have multiple to do's which will be of type this to do array, and every to do has a user ID field where, or a user ID field which is related to this ID field through this relationship. हमने क्या लिखा कि हर to do एक user है. Every to do is related to a user somehow. And what is that somehow? How is it related? Every to do will have a user of type user, इस type का, where there is a relationship between the user ID field here, ये user ID field, which references the ID field over here. What have we said? कि every to do will have a user's entry which is of type user, which goes through this relationship. The relationship being कि जो user ID field यहाँ पे है, that is related to the ID field यहाँ पे. Foreign key type बता दी कि ये user ID field is related to the ID field over here. Every user has a bunch of to-dos. Every to-do has a parent user, a admin, whatever you want to call it, to-do parent. हमने user लिखा यहाँ पे, you can call it whatever you want, which is of type user. And there is a relationship between user ID field over here and the ID field over here. Simple enough? करके दिखते हैं code. What did we say? कि यार every user will have a bunch of to-dos of type to-do array. Every user will have a bunch of to-dos of type to-do array. And every to-do will have a user of type user is type का, which is related through a relationship where the user ID field over here references the ID field over here. That is the extra thing you have to add. if you want to specify relationships. What have I done? User will have multiple to-dos. To-do will have a parent user. Let's see it in action. Let's try to migrate the database and let's see kya SQL query bani finally. That will give us more clarity on what exactly this does. So npx prisma migrate dev. We'll wait for it to happen. Still waiting for it to happen. Let me look at Q&A until then. How will we know if the schema file which is foreign key? How will we know in the schema file which foreign key user ID? You are clearly defining the one-to-many relationship, right? User can have many to-dos. To-do will have a single user. That is a clear one-to-many relationship. So of course, this fields over here is the foreign key to the users table referenced by this ID. If I'm doing migration in my local and then deleting the migration files so I can get those files by running the same commands, no, that will mess things up a lot. Never do that. Don't touch migration files after your database has migrated. You can do it, but then you'll lead to बहुत गंदे migration issues. Then you have to fix them बड़े अजीब तरीके से. So if you've migrated a local database, it's fine, but then you'll have to clear your database and re-migrate it. If you try to start to fix migrations, things get very haywire. So never touch. If this one of these migrations has reached your database, no, never touch it. Name for the new migration will be added relation. Don't touch these files that have reached the prod database or dev database. If they have reached your local database, so updating them will give you local errors. So just delete your local database, create a new local database, and then re-migrate everything. Rather than if it ever touches a production database, do not touch these files. Do not update them. Do not change them at all. Prisma gets very finicky, and then you have to either delete your whole data and re-migrate, or you have to fix these migration issues, which are also a pain in the butt. Why client needs to generate it manually? Why Prisma does not generate updated automatically during migrations? If it just so it does generate it automatically also. Like if you migrate it, if you see, I ran npx Prisma migrate dev, automatically it generated the client also. But if I'm a new developer and मैंने clone किया है नया code, then I have to generate it, right? I don't have the client with me locally, and I don't want to re-migrate the production database, let's say. So if I'm a new developer, I will bring the code base locally. I will regenerate the client, but migrate when you run migrate, by default it runs generate also. The Prisma client does get generated. Okay. We have added the relationship. Let's look at what got added. Alter table to do, add constraint. This is the name of the constraint. Foreign key user ID references users of ID. On delete restrict, on update cascade. If you've done this last week, add a constraint. I mean, they always use this syntax. We did it a different way last week. We would, add the foreign key directly over here. They are doing all of these. They are specifying all the constraints alag se. But what does the constraint say? Constraint says कि यार एक foreign key बनाओ for user ID in the to do table. Alter table to do, जो to do table है यहाँ बना था, इस पे alter कर दो ये वाली field. Add a foreign key over here which references users table की ID field. That is exactly what we said. क्या बोला था हमने यहाँ पे? कि we created a relationship. Notice it did not create a new to-dos column. It did not create a new user column. It understands this is a relationship. It knows relationships can be propagated via foreign keys. It just added a single foreign key user ID से ID पे. That is it. इसका फायदा क्या हुआ? The benefit of this is कि now if I go here, I can say कि यार give me the user and include their to-dos. मुझे user के साथ ही उसके to-dos दे दो please. If I now run, let me add a to-do to our database. So we have a user with ID 1. Let me add a to-do. Go to gym. false. User ID 1. Let me add this to do over here. And since I have described this relationship and they understand that user can have many to-dos, I can include to-dos over here. If I now run npm run dev, I get back the user's detail. I also get back all of their to-dos. Now, does it use joins? Did it send two queries? Did it send a subquery? Is a different question. We can see that. Most probably it will send two queries or a subquery. It will not do a join. That's 99% sure that happens. But as the application developer, isn't your life very easy? You just had to do this. And you got all the to-dos for the user. So if you ever have a endpoint that needs to expose the user's details and all of their to-dos, this is your endpoint. Simply call the whatever get user function over here. That's pretty much it. That's how you do relationships. Can we do a quick poll? Now, there are many kinds of relationships. One-to-many is the most common one, but there are one-to-one relationships. There are many-to-one relationships. There are many-to-many relationships. How do they come into the picture? We'll discuss. But do we understand one-to-many? Sort of. 90%. Good enough. All right. 88% per okay. I'll do polls, questions very soon. 9:30 pe we'll call it. A few things I can give you also. Okay, try to figure out कि raw query क्या गई database को. See, there's very easily you can some config you have to flip. यहाँ पे you have to pass something. I don't know, log queries. Oh, I guess that is it. Let's see if this is it. This probably isn't it. Yeah, this isn't it. But find a way so that you can see the raw query that is going to Postgres. You can learn a lot from it. कि अच्छा ये under the hood convert किस में हो रहा है? What does the raw SQL query look like? So take that as an assignment. And relationships are done. These are just functions created to do. Last thing is expressifying it. Like how would you create an Express application with Prisma as the ORM, Postgres as the database? You would install Express. Great, that is done. You would create an HTTP server. You do app.get /users, let's say. This should return you all of the users. So यहाँ पे आप क्या लिखोगे? Const users equal to client.user.find many. This will return you all the users that you have. Await it. Rest.json. That's how you create the user's endpoint. Then you might have a user for a specific ID. Okay, how do I get all the details or meta or to-dos, let's say. To-dos for all the user, for a specific user. Const ID equal to rec.params.id. Client.user.find one, where ID is this ID, and also select to-dos to be true. This will return you everything for that user. Find first. I'm just making TypeScript a little happy here. You can also add Zod in here to fix the types. And this will give you, all the details of the user as well as their to-do. You can expressify it. Now let me do a app.listen 3000. Let me rerun the application. If I go to /users, what do I see? I see one user exists. If I go to /users/1 or /user/1, kya hai endpoint? Sorry, to-do/1. It crashes. So yeah, the one thing about them is Prisma does a lot of checks up front. मैंने इसको string pass कर दी because rec.params.id will be a string. That is what is the type error here. So I passed it a string. It said भाई नहीं चलेगा. So here I'll convert the string into a number. You can do this. You can do parse int of id. Either is fine. And then this will not crash. Right now it crashed because it was expecting a number over here. I gave it a string because rec.params.id में ऐसे वन आ रहा था. It wasn't an integer one, it was a string one. Let's try it one more time. Refresh. And now you will see I get the user के सारे to dos. I don't get any users details, so let me do that also. Okay, I would like to include username and whatever password, let's say. Now if I restart it, I see the user के सारे to dos. I see their username, I see their password. So that's how you do it. That's how you expressify a Prisma application. Generate the client, create the Express server, add your endpoints. Rather than doing mongoose.find1, you're doing client.find1, user.find1, client.todos.find1. So it's as simple as that. There are a few more things like pagination कैसे डलेगी इसमें. How can you do join? Someone asked that. How do you do many-to-many relationships, one-to-many relationships, or one-to-many to ho gaya, many-to-one relationships, things like these, or one-to-one relationships. That's a question for another day, maybe tomorrow. But mota, do we understand this? Let's do a quick poll. ठीक है जी. Is there anything else that we have for today? No, that's last slide. That is it. I'm going to open Q&A for a bit now. But if you understood everything, this is all you had to do. The difficult things, as I said, like we can explore right now, is what does the query look like under the hood, the SQL query? How do you do different types of joins? How do you do many-to-many relationships or many-to-one relationships or one-to-one relationships? Limit, pagination, offset, things like these. So those are things we can discuss. We'll also do them tomorrow. But first, let me look at Q&A and see any questions until this point. Is there any speed difference between Prisma and Drizzle? Great question. It's probably documented somewhere. There shouldn't be too much. The SQL query under the hood that's going to the database is what matters. Now, it might happen that Drizzle enforces joins, Prisma does not enforce joins. So in that case, of course, one of them will be slower based on, if they're generating different queries. But if both of them are generating the same queries, it will be a very minuscule difference. Like going and talking to the SQL server takes most of the time, right? Generating the query doesn't matter. ऐसे generate कर लो कि वैसे generate कर लो. So shouldn't be too much different. I am creating a CMS clone. I want to integrate with WebRTC in it. Depends. If you're using something like LiveKit for WebRTC, it'll be very easy. If you're building WebRTC SFUs in-house, and it'll be really hard. If you're using some open source SFU, that will be a little easy. But deploying it is hard. So basically, V1 should be very easy. Use Pion or MediaSoup, one of these. Or if that gets too difficult, use LiveKit. If you're saying if it says can't reach database, a lot of times this happens. Neon has troubles from certain Wi-Fi's. I've seen this. If I connect to my VPN right now, Neon will start to reject my requests. When I was in Paris last time, when I was doing this class, in cohort 2, same thing. It would not connect. From certain IPs, it doesn't connect. So, just try changing your IP, your network, you should be fine. All right. Seeding dummy data. Oh, that's a great point, actually. How do you seed data is also a good point. For example, if you go to Prisma /seed.ts in CMS, it lets you seed data. What does seeding data mean? ये कुछ initial data डाल दो यार. If a new developer comes to your team, they will migrate the database, that is fine. But there will be no initial data in there. If you have ever set up CMS locally, you will see some initial data in there, some users, some courses. That happens through this seed.ts file. So one thing you can do or should do is in your Prisma, create a folder, create seed.ts. And here write some code. For example, function create dummy users. And here just do something like call create dummy users. Import, how do you import client here? Oh, okay. So basically import Prisma client from @prisma/client, const client equal to new Prisma client. And यहाँ पे कुछ dummy data डाल दो यार कि client.user.create one, create username Harkirat, age 21, password 12313. क्या रह गया? City Delhi. So just create this top level file that creates a user, and then maybe it creates some to-dos. वो यहाँ पे भी सीधा कर सकते हो, I think. To-dos create, and then, description, go to gym, title gym, done, false. So like put a bunch of data in here so that whenever a new user comes and tries to run this, they can run npx prisma db seed. I think you have to do a few things though. You have to add this to package.json. You have to add this to package.json. You might have to add ts node as well. So like npm install ts node at type/node. And then if you do npx prisma db seed, as it is saying running seed command ts node something, and then it failed for some reason. Let's see what the reason is. Uniqueness constraint failed or username. मेरे database में already user with हकीकत है. So let me know. So when a new person comes and they seed the database will be empty. My database already had an entry for the user Harkirat, which is why it failed. Let me rerun it, and it says the seed command has been executed. So you were able to seed the data. Seeding क्या मतलब है? Seeding it, मतलब putting some initial data in there, so that when a new developer comes to your team, clones the code base and runs this command, they see some data in there. That's what happens in CMS. If you start CMS, you see a user in there. You see some courses in there. All of these courses we seed by default. ताकि कुछ आपको दिख जाए dashboard पे. You are able to run with some data. That is what seeding is. When it is open and website stops, there's no network. How is it done? I don't think that's in 100x devs. Like I'm pretty sure you can see the network logs in here. Network. Yeah, we have not done anything like that. You can go through it. Might happen on Harkirat or classes.core10. It's very easy to do. Like figure out if the console is open, there might be some event that triggers, and if that happens, refresh the person or something like that. How can we store hash password in database? That has nothing to do with the database, right? You do an npm install bcrypt. After this is done, you import bcrypt from bcrypt. And यहाँ पे whatever the user's app.post user, const username equal to rec.body.username, const password equal to rec.body.password, const hashed password equal to bcrypt dot whatever hash जो भी function होता है, give it the raw password, the number of rounds, and then in the users table do a client dot user dot create. Username is the same, but the password is the hashed password. So that has nothing to do with the database. वो तो database के बाहर होता है ना. That happens over here. So database has nothing to do with hashing the password. That happens outside. Funny. Can I get opportunity form list link? It's for instant cohort to Discord right now. It'll come here eventually. All right. Okay, seems like no more Q&A questions. So I'll just open chat now. So let's do the chat के questions now. Any questions, guys? All right. Join से क्या होता है? Go to last week's class. We've discussed joins last week. Next week, great question. Probably next week. Yeah, tomorrow हो जाएगा यार. There's some things in Prisma that might be good to add, but like not more than 30 minutes. So we can probably start Next.js tomorrow, which is great. That means by next week we'll be able to finish Next.js, which means projects are coming. Out of topic, bcrypt and argon 2, which is better? Most people use argon 2. Surprisingly, bcrypt has some compatibility issues. I know recent video of mine you might see it was not working well. I don't know with what. So I had to create my own library that had the same schema as bcrypt. So argon I've seen used in most places. Can you do a quick recap of migrations? Can you skip migration? Can you quickly recap migrations? Yes. So whenever you have a full stack application, initially उसमें सिर्फ users table होगा. Let's say you're creating Facebook. Then you added a social network. ठीक है. Then after 1 year you added messaging. ठीक है. Then after 1 year you added games. So the schema changes over time. Migrations let you keep track of कैसे कैसे table change हुआ है over time. Initially, the first time the application was created, Facebook was created, only users table was there. Then after a few days, they realized, okay, we are going to support to do, so to do table is there. These are called migrations. Your database is migrating with each one of these commands. It's a good thing to have these migrations in a single place. जैसे यहाँ पे पड़ी हैं ये सारी सारी. So that कोई नया डेवलपर आए तो he doesn't have to figure out and ask other developers कि भाई अभी recent schema क्या है. He doesn't have to ask them. उसकी सारी files यहाँ पे. He'll run one of these commands again and again. And good to go. उसका database migrate हो गया. So that is why you need migrations, and that's what they do. Was I not recording? I was. Node.js project with VoIP. Oh boy. How back we get to know call is being ring? Yeah. Oh boy, this takes me back. I have not worked too much with VoIP. I've always been interested in it. A lot of clients would ask for it, but I would just, throw my hands up in the air. I think, and I could be wrong, but VoIP and WebRTC both have this initial challenge. Okay, like once you get the other person's SDP, you can talk to them. I think VoIP also has SDPs only, but you have to initially किसी तरीके से send the SDP to the other side. So there is this Node.js project only that we used to use. Let's see, Node.js VoIP. Voice over IP protocol होती है for people who are wondering. If you ever join Google Meet via your phone, that uses VoIP. But it's like really hard to do, and something I've never done honestly. But I think if you're doing it yourself, basically, you have to somehow signal the other guy's SDP to yourself. How that happens is, out of my pay grade. But I'm always interested. And if you find something, let me know. I also would love to see, or create a WebRTC call where I can join via my phone. That'd be pretty cool. All right. Why is it recommended to install Prisma as a dev dependency? Because most of the things that it is doing at dev time. When you're developing, you are migrating your database during development. You are generating the client during development. You are using TypeScript during development. So when you use something during development, it is a good idea to put it as a dev dependency because आप सिर्फ उसको development के दौरान use कर रहे हो. You don't use TypeScript during running. जब आप run करते हो अपना code, you run JavaScript code. You don't need the TypeScript dependency over there. That is why Prisma you don't need when you're running your code. You need the Prisma client, but you don't need Prisma when you're running your final code. That is why it's good to have as a dev dependency. How to connect Prisma with PG admin? Oh, pretty easy, right? PG admin may just put this. Prisma has nothing to do with it. Open PG admin and put this database URL over there. Khatam. Put this database URL over there. Let me refresh the password as well. What does it mean to say the dev environment is down? Isn't dev our local machine? How can it be down? Can a migration be reverted? If not, how to fix this mistake? Great questions. So two parts to your question. The first part, dev is not local, that is local. When you're running it locally, it's called local. Then there is dev, there is staging, there is prod. So these are, three environments. Basically, we have projects.100xs.com. We also have staging.projects.100xs.com or, staging.placements.100xs.com. Everything has a staging environment. Why? Because when people are committing to the master branch very actively, it should go into the staging environment. So यहाँ पे if staging is down or dev is down, it means कुछ तो गलत हो गया है code base में कि staging is down. The current commits that have been made in the main branch, they have brought staging down. So you should not merge the current changes to the production branch. If you go to CMS, there is a main branch. यहाँ पे आप जो भी commit करते हो, if it reaches here, it should reach staging.app.100xdevs.com. I don't think if this is set up or not, but ideally, yeah, it does reach here. So जो भी commit यहाँ हो रहे हैं, they reach our dev environment or staging environment. But if a commit over here breaks something, then staging will break. We will say staging is down or dev is down. And whenever we fix it in the next commit, then this will come back up. प्रोडक्शन ब्रांच जो है, जब यहां पे कुछ पहुंचता है, which happens every 1 week, then it reaches app.100xsteps.com. Staging, every commit on main reaches here. जैसे commit हुआ main पे, deploy होके यहां पहुंच जाएगा. Production, every once a week we deploy over here. So that is what it means when I said dev environment is down. दूसरा question क्या था? Migrations can't be reverted. You can undo them. For example, if I, whatever, schema.prisma, if I added a new field here called age, integer, migrated, I can remove it and remigrate. Khatam. Bunch of Notion docs. All right. A real-time WebSocket chat application has been made by our friend here, hosted on frontend on Vercel. Backend on Railway, very cool. Love to see it. Let's chat. That looks decent. Love it. Some doubts. Looking for developers GSOC in this thing. Qualify. Oh, this looks decent. Your profile looks decent. Let's see. CGP is also decent, bro. Okay. How do I communicate this to? So I'll just keep this open. I'll share it with the HRs. They'll talk to you. You can go from there. Although वो कोई बहुत बड़ी opportunity नहीं दे देंगे आपको. But yeah, profile is decent, so you might get somewhere. ठीक है, done. I'm going to Sydney or London after 12. Oh, I have no idea, bro. I'm not going for US because visa restrictions and also expensive country. Yeah, Sydney is where most of my, Sydney, Canada is where most of my people go. So I've heard it's decent. But now they're putting a bunch of restrictions. I don't know. So but do it. Yeah, Sydney sounds good. Is what I would take, but take your decision yourself. Sydney is probably cheaper than London also. What happens if I delete a random migration file in Prisma? Then how do I keep track of data migration? You are screwed. You can regenerate the Prisma files. There is a way to recover Prisma files as well. If you delete them though, I don't know, man. That might lead to. One thing you can do is delete everything, and then you re-migrate your database from scratch. Like, अपने database को copy करके backup करो, delete your database. Remigrate everything. It will generate a new fresh file, init file, and go from there. That is one way to do it. That's how we had done it once. But Prisma gives you ways to clean up migrations if this happens by mistake. But generally, try it. This doesn't happen only. Are schemas inversely proportional? Like, can we get users data, users to do, so we can get? Yes, you can do that as well. So if I do const to do's equal to client.todos.find first select user true. So this will give you the to-dos as well as the user's details. There's an issue. I tried to change machine with the network as well, but still didn't work. What is the issue? Oh, okay. Let's create an issue. New issue bug. Something is up with week 7. Someone might have touched the database or something. I would assume that's what went wrong. And where's AK? AK is taking a break right now. Oh, padha do bhaiya, please. Oh, okay. Sure. RN, take a note. What? There's a blog post. I'll find it and take you through it. It's very nice. Done. I was going through MongoDB docs, mentioned that it's an object data modeling tool. Yeah, I have no idea. It's like a jargon that I've also learned. It's an ODM. एक बार मैंने ORM बोलते था, बच्चे ने मेरे हाथ मतलब, oh, but it's not an ORM, it's an ODM. I have no idea what an ODM means. I've heard about object document mapping and object relation mapping, like, oh, it's not even an ODM, it's something else only. Object data modeling tool. Like I can just guess from its name. Object data modeling tool. So, something that lets you map objects data. You get the idea, right? So yeah, I have no idea why they call it an ODM. It has features very similar to an ORM, right? Abstracts all the complexity of connecting to MongoDB, and there's no need of migrations in Mongo because it's schema-less. So yeah, I always assume it's an ORM, but yes, it's technically an ODM. What that means, God knows. What is the difference between normal join and full join in this is something. Normal join versus full join. Normal join versus full join. What is a normal join? We discussed inner joins and full joins. Oh, it's the same thing only we discussed last week then. Yeah, so basically, let me show you SQL. There are 4 types of joins that you can do. One of them, I'm assuming what you're calling is a normal join, and then there is a full join. So a normal join is inner join. Join or inner join mean the same thing. If I ever write select star from users join to dos, or if I write inner join here, they both mean the same thing. Inner join में क्या होता है कि दोनों जगह there should be an entry. Only if there is an entry here and here does it finally appear in the final output. But full join में, even if it is in one place and not in the other place, it appears. अगर यहाँ पे users table में there is an entry but there is no to do for that user, you will still see that user in the final entry. To do rows will be empty. And similarly, if there's a to do which doesn't have a user, so hoga nahi वैसे because you have a foreign key constraint. But let's say there's a to do that doesn't have a user. If you do a full join, that to do will appear in the final output set. If you do an inner join or a normal join, then it will not. All right, let's see interesting questions you have here. Done. Brainy doubts. I have built the website generating the shareable link, and the user generates a hash, gives to their friend. How should I make a front end so that you can access the brain? I was thinking of making a new page. That is correct. And the front end getting the, that is correct. That is one way to do it. Don't have it as a query param. Just have it, as a link. /brain/share link. That's good. Atom. Since we haven't used atoms up until now, we require the future project. Can you say some projects? Yeah. If you want to use recoil at all, good idea to do it right now. Gets a little finicky when you're doing it with Next.js, because it needs to run on the client, but Next.js does server-side rendering. So I think one thing you can add is a global atom called config that lets you update things like dark mode on hai ki light mode on hai, yeah, with the font size that the user wants to see on your second brain application. So make all of these configurable, put them in an atom so that everywhere you need font size, you get it from the atom. That's one thing you can do. The assignments are great for learning stuff, but could you suggest some projects which make, based on the knowledge up until now, sometimes it gets overwhelming and tend to forget things? Yeah. What could be a good project until this point? Like probably a simple one only. Paytm from cohort 2 is actually pretty decent. So you can try that. Or e-commerce is on very similar lines, but don't build e-commerce clones. Meri video hai. But there's like a lot you can do in e-commerce clones. For example, when someone is buying, that resource. So this is like a very complicated channel thing. It sounds easy, but it's not. Because if you only have 5 t-shirts available and 10 people are buying it at the same time, how do you make sure only 5 can buy it and you don't give it to 10 people? Things like these get a little complicated. So maybe try building an e-commerce app with strong focus on this. You can't ever make your inventory negative. If there are 5 t-shirts you have, only 5 people can buy it. 6 people galti se nahi khareed lenge. Are there any extensions for Prisma like in NeoVim, I would assume? Not that I am sure of. Not that I know of. There might be, someone might have written something. All right. When we will use UPI to deduct money, doesn't receive shopkeeper. Is that because Paytm or haven't bind with the transaction? I'm assuming you're asking कि जब ऐसा होता है किसकी गलती है, and इसमें बैंक की गलती होती है most of the times. If you ever don't see the transaction on the other side reflected, it's most probably the bank that's not telling Paytm, because Paytm doesn't have to do much. Banks are slow, archaic, and you have to do the real transaction. So I would assume it gets stuck here, but I don't know exactly what you're asking. कहाँ पे stuck हो जाती है transaction? What specific error case are you talking about? It's when जब मैंने भेजा, but it's saying it's stuck right now. Is it that you're asking? Or sometimes you send, but the acknowledgement doesn't come on the other side. Is that what you're asking? How much data access do we have in the industry? How much leverage can we refine data as code might be written 10, 20 years back? What does that question mean? How much data access do we have in the industry? Or in industry, how leverage we have to refine data? Oh, okay. I'm assuming your question is code बहुत old है, archaic है. How much can you change it? Long story short, you don't change it much. The systems built, you fucking work with them. It's like very hard to do a revamp or change schema, make it better. So everything is very slow moving. Sir, join में table create होती है या सिर्फ result display होता है, कोई नया table नहीं मिलता. That's something else. Create a class about using ORM ODM necessary. It's not necessary. It makes your life very easy though, so you should do it. It's not necessary. Nothing is necessary. You don't need Node.js. You can create a Java application. It's not necessary, but it's a good thing to do. So that's the answer there. Why a hydration app error infects Next.js application? Is it completely fresh? Yeah, there you go. I know what the error is. Yeah, I have to still look at your code, but basically you probably have some client or server component which is getting access to things like date.now, or you're doing something like this. It's clearly telling you basically, okay, this hydration error comes when the thing that is rendered on the server is not the same as the client, and you are creating a date application. So I would assume somewhere in your use effect, you are creating a new date which renders separately on the server and the client. That's why this is happening. So put that inside a use effect of, put it inside an effect. Effect will only run on the client. Wherever you're doing this, wherever you're using date or date.now, don't use it directly in your component. Use it inside a use effect. That should fix it. But yeah, totally makes sense why it's happening on this and a website like this. We'll talk about this. Like why do hydration error comes in Next.js? But long story short, Next.js renders things on the client and the server. So if you ever call date.now, उस सर्वर पे डिफरेंट आएगा, क्लाइंट पे डिफरेंट आएगा, एंड इट्स टेलिंग यू क्लियरली कि भाई सर्वर एंड क्लाइंट शो वेरी डिफरेंट थिंग्स. तो यू हैव डन समथिंग वियर्ड. तो द वियर्ड थिंग दैट यू हैव डन इज यू हैव rendered the date inside a component somewhere जो client पे अलग दिख रही है, server पे अलग दिख रही है, तो it is giving you a hydration error. Done this one. All right, we'll do one more round and we'll call it. All right, lot of them. ऊपर से start करते हैं. Have you decided? I have not decided on any project, but I can do Zoom. Like there's no, whatever is a challenging thing we'll do. Etc. is actually pretty simple, but okay, we'll do it for because we've mentioned it. But we'll see. I haven't decided any projects. Happens very ad hoc. जो company hire कर रही होती है मैं उसको clone कर देता हूँ कि हाँ देखो ये बनाते हैं. तो Brainly was similar, so we can find something like that. Why don't we get a complex query from Prisma to run so that we have to run multiple queries? Why don't we get a complex query from Prisma to run so we don't have to run multiple queries? I'm not saying it runs multiple queries. It might run a subquery. It doesn't do joins, which also I think they've changed. Or there's a way for you to flip for it to do joins. But why is a different question. Like, they decided to go with this route. Ki, haan, theek hai, if you're querying, there are also joins don't make sense always. Sometimes they make your query really slow. So there's no black or white answer as to whether or not you should do joins. They don't do it, and that is fine. If you feel your specific use case, you need joins or you need specific queries, you can always run a raw query in Prisma. Prisma lets you run raw SQL queries also, so you can run that and make your life a little easy. All right. How to make notification system just normal sockets, or you should use queues if you're creating a notification system. Very standard use case. You need queues. You can get overwhelmed with a bunch of notifications. You shouldn't. You should slowly process them, not all at once. Do we need to keep updating the migrations ourselves? There is no way to automate it. You can add it to your CI/CD pipeline. Anytime the schema or Prisma has changed, in the CI/CD pipeline, new migrations are created and auto-committed to the repository, or automatically the database is migrated. Although generally it's done manually only because it's a very risky thing to do anything like this in a CI/CD pipeline automatically. Database को touch करने में बहुत सबकी it's scary. So you don't do this too much. Give some glimpse of our 100 steps offsite for people. We'll see. Deciding the location yet. So like still up in the air. Have you decided any other? Okay, answer that. Python dev, should I deploy to EC2? Yes. Or your own VM. You can do. Yeah. If you can't spend, then definitely don't do Vercel. It'll take you less than an hour to figure out how to deploy it to EC2. I'll also probably hopefully have DevOps videos out soon, so you can go from there. What are microservices, and when will we learn about that? Also hustling with projects and making front-end responsive design. Microservices are basically, you don't have a single big backend. You divide it into various parts. For example, good example might be that you have a separate authentication system to check kar raha hai, is this a user, is this an admin, how much access does they have, are they accessing the wrong endpoint? And then, some to-do service that's actually doing the to-do checking. As Arpit Bhani said in, his meetup here, monoliths are default. microservice needs a reason. So you don't need to divide your application into multiple applications unless there's a reason. Reason being, you need something that's only available in Golang. So in that case, you need another microservice written in Golang. But usually, एक single code base होता है. Maximum 2 code bases हो जाएंगे, one for HTTP, one for WebSocket. But beyond that, if you're breaking down, you have to answer why. Why are you breaking down into various services? And if there's a good reason, then you do it. Then microservices is basically a bunch of services that you're creating, a bunch of Node.js processes that you're creating. Will we learn that probably during 1-200 बाद वाले part में? We can do one project where we break it down too much and create a lot of microservices just to understand what they do. Responsive design, I'll get Keshav to do it or something. I can do it myself also, but I hate doing it. So we'll see. Back burner, not important right now. Today's go to GitHub. How these versions will be used by anyone in the future? Oh, if you ever go to CMS today and try to clone it, अगर आप ये repository को आज की डेट में clone करते हो, तो ये migrations ही तो हैं जो आप local database में जाएंगे. You will create a fresh database. These migrations will go into that fresh database. That is how you will be able to run CMS on your machine. So that's how they are used by other people. We need to keep updating migrations ourselves. Okay, answered that one. Have you decided? Okay, answered that. Cool. Notion docs. You mentioned last week got referral, but I haven't received any HR yet. I know you're on Twitter, right? You messaged me थोड़ी देर पहले also. Yes, I haven't forwarded your email to HRs yet. Let me do that today. It's easier to open. I know, doesn't work for me though. Sargam fixed it, but then it broke again. I'll figure it out. अब हम बड़े हो गए हैं. Last class recap मत किया करो. Okay. Is there any reason you haven't deployed or launched your own indie web developer? I don't have the time yet. Would love to though. How do you so many experience के साथ आ जाती है भाई, मतलब वो चीज़ ना कि हाँ, you do things so many times, so that's how you get comfortable there. What did you actually use to do as a consultant? Oh, what did you? Oh, it's a lot of building the same thing for everyone. It's a lot of copying, pasting code everywhere, if I'm being honest, and feeling very proud about it. कि, oh, मैंने ये लिखा है. But it's just you've copied it from. Don't copy place from one client, even though you do. It's mostly you have a lot of expertise in one thing. For example, you have created Express applications 20 times. Now, let's say no one in the world can create Express applications, and there is a boom of Express. So, what takes you 5 seconds will take, no one else can do. So, it gives you a lot of power. So, it's a lot of reach out खुद ही आते हैं कि web artist चाहिए, and then, you pitch them, very difficult. So, $200 an hour, and they're like, okay. And then you copy paste your code, do it in 5 hours, bill 20 hours, and, make money. What diet? Yeah, I'm not the best guy. I'm not following, not the best guy to ask this. Very bad diet, very, family isn't here, so ordering a lot of Super 30. So no, I wish I could give a good answer. I wouldn't. By the way, okay, cool, man. See you. All right. How do I preview PDF or any other format when someone uploads? There are PDF viewers, but generally, if someone uploads a PDF, you convert it into images. You decompose it into various images, and that is what you render on the front end. But there are, PDF.js करके एक library that let you render PDF on the front end. It's very incompatible with mobile devices. So generally, it's a good idea. किसी ने PDF upload करी, break it down into various PNGs and store it in your database. Show the PNGs. How do we upload any files? There are good ways to do it, bad ways to do it. Bad way to do it is use something like Multer, and from your backend upload it to S3. Good ways to do it is generate pre-signed URLs. And let the user upload directly from the front end to the server. All of these things, great questions that I'm putting in a very long doc, which has like 100 of these standard things, standard way to do this. So whenever that comes, you'll find them there. But long story short, pre-signed URLs करके एक चीज होती है. That's how the user can upload directly to your object store, and that's how you do it. You avoid the standard approach of using Multer on your backend and uploading from your backend. Is there a way to parse the content of a PDF? Yeah, PDF.js will do it. Give you all the contents, send it to an AI. It's finicky though. Like PDFs are very weirdly written, so सारा data शायद नहीं आएगा, image data छुप जाएगा, but that's fine. Did you leak your API key or phone numbers on YouTube? I think I might have from time to time. I don't use NeoMem at all. Which website were you using for AI generated images now? They're all manually generated for the moment. Can you push today's code on GitHub? Okay, few people asked this, so let's do it. Now I think we're at week 18. So week 18, Prisma. It's private. Weeks 18, Prisma. Public. That's done. Okay, I've committed it to the 100x steps cohort 3 repos. Alrighty. Done. Got my PR merchant CMS. Content very cool. Let's see, what did you do? Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. How do you filter? Oh, did you break the title वाली चीज जो बंदे ने आज कही है? Because it was happening at the same point. I don't know. We'll see. But good work. How do social media posts work and like and dislike system? I'm supposed to save the state update and update it on the front end and the back end as well. That's going to be a lot of requests. I'm sending requests to update like on the post. Yeah. So few things. This is like very challenging, right? Why? Because when you send a like, then you can store it in a table. You can have a likes table. You can have a table called likes, which will have user ID and then post ID and has liked. So one user comes, you'll add one user ID one on post ID two has liked. But the problem here is what? Okay, if you want to see the number of likes, then you'll have to query this table, go through all the rows and figure out कितने लोगों ने post को like किया है. So usually there are two tables. There's the likes table, then the like count table, and यहाँ पे is just कि post ID 2 has 10 likes right now. So you have to make sure whenever you do this update, you do it in both the places. You use a transaction so that whenever a new entry is made over here, then this goes up in the same transaction. If one of these fails, both of them revert. Is that too many database requests? I don't know. Do people like posts too much? Probably. So yeah, there are like standard ways to, if you know something is happening in bulk and you have to slowly send it to the database, there are like standard things like ETL pipelines, or throw it into a queue, slowly pick it up from there and put it in bulk in the database. But this is the difficult, not the difficult, but the thing you have to think about. Okay, should I have a separate table? Because you need this table. इसके बिना काम नहीं चलेगा. This table will tell you whether or not this person has already liked. So if only the people who are in here can dislike, other people can't. So that is why you need this table. But this becomes very expensive in the get query. Get me the number of rows in here. That is why you need two tables over here. Okay, what's your second question? For the post schema, Google Debate, I found that I have to include a unique ID for every post. That's just this ID, user ID, post ID. What do you mean by post schema? I don't know. I'm assuming you mean second brain. And ID, unique ID is this only. Post ID, user ID. That's what they're talking about most probably. Let me know if not. All right. Done that one. Oh, no. Oh, no. Done one. This one's done. EVM and Tezos. I have done some token projects on Solana. Currently, the company is token to program. My company is launching a couple of projects on Solana. I want to learn Rust, but the Web3 slow. I watched. Yeah, exactly. Found one YouTube and happened to read the comment. Some people were selling a course for lesser price and saying so we'll take it free. Share the links. Oh, okay. I think you. I got your message yesterday from WhatsApp. Taiwan, let's talk. So, do you have any question? Currently researching about Anchor. Yeah. So Rust, I have honestly whatever you need for Anchor in Rust is already on YouTube. So I have two videos on YouTube on Rust. Probably the first. You need both of them, first and second one. Second one discusses lifetimes, which is fairly common in Anchor. But other than that, Anchor is not too difficult. It actually makes your life very easy. What's difficult is writing raw Solana contracts. But if you understand the data model, which you may or may not, because you're saying you're an EVM developer before, do you understand PDAs and how data is distributed in Solana? If you understand that, then writing Anchor contracts is easy. Writing it yourself, raw contracts in Solana is a little hard. So maybe go through Rust video 1, then Rust video 2, then create a simple, I don't know, escrow contract. Yeah, create a simple escrow contract. That's actually a good starting point. Then move on to I don't know, whatever you want to build. Maybe go through the token program next. Okay. So step 1, Rust video 1, Rust video 2, create a simple escrow program, go through the token program on Solana, then go from there. Itna kar lo pehle, then we can talk. I think this is a good start. Uske baad I think you'll be sorted. Uske baad you'll figure out what's happening. All right, this is done. I'm not getting A, B in request body. You are using JSON. कौन बताएगा? I can't see anything wrong here, honestly. क्या कर रहा था, किसी को दिख रहा है? A दिख रहा है ना? I don't see anything wrong. npm install course at type slash course nd. Is that a post request to slash sum with A and B? भाई क्या हो गया? कुछ तो फाड़ दिया मैंने. प्रिज्मा को डिलीट कर देते हैं अभी के लिए. C.ts डाली थी ना? That's probably it. I should just ignore the Prisma folder, but that's fine. All right, send request. Hey, you are right. What the fuck? Oh, you're probably doing what I'm doing. Raw, यहाँ पे JSON रखो. अब भेजो. There you go. You're most probably not selecting JSON over here. What this does is it adds a header, specifically, content type header. Yeah. You're missing this. You're not sending content type application JSON. Or if you're in Postman, you're not selecting JSON over here. That's probably what's breaking it. So, express.json only knows you have sent JSON if you have sent this in the header. Header में आपको बताना पड़ता है कि मैं JSON भेज रहा हूँ. So you're probably not doing that. That's what's causing it. All right. So here, you are adding content type though. Yeah, now I don't know. This looks right. Oh, what the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Seriously? Who's boy D? I hope you got it. There's a typo in your code. Done. Alrighty, cool guys. We'll call it here.